All right. Welcome and good morning. We are videotaping this, so for those who are unable to make it, should they desire to watch it later, they can. So just so I have an idea of how many of you have either, and it's okay, just acknowledge it, have either been unable to were unable to attend the Fly the Mission seminar or haven't been able to watch it either. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, 5. So the important thing to me in that is that, so what you have before you is what they call, or we call, an infographic, which some person who has talent way beyond mine took actually what was on my whiteboard in my office and created this. And for those of you who attended the Fly the Mission session, you'll see the concepts there that are drawn right out of that presentation. And so I'd count them probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different concepts, aside from the Fly the Mission concept, which is, I'll call that the 7th. And they're tools. The intent of this is for us to develop a common language of how we look at things, common systems for us to be able to evaluate where we are and where we're going. This isn't by any means permanent, meaning as we evolve, as we continuously improve, my expectation is we'll reach a moment where we have moments of epiphany where we realize that this can be done better. There's something in this that we can do better as an organization, and we adapt it over time. So today's conversation is twofold. One is just a refresher on the Fly the Mission within the context of this infographic. And then secondly, we're going to talk about what it means to be an effective manager, which is relevant, in my opinion, whether or not you actively manage people, because we're either on the giving end or we're on the receiving end. And some people, or most of us, are on both ends, in this room. You're not only managing others, but you're receiving management from someone who's your superior. So there's your infographic. 2 components that we started our conversation with in earlier this year, whenever that was. The first is to set clear expectations. And this is the fundamental. This is, in my opinion, the underpinning of everything. If 80% of an organization's problems come from communication, this is the remedy. That right out of the gates, I'm going to set clear expectations in our conversations with each other, what we want done. Second, we're going to build systems of support and accountability. This ties part and parcel with it, because after having that conversation with regard to expectations, we're going to talk about how we commonly build a system, identify the resources, and then figure out at the end of it whether or not we achieve that. That's the accountability portion of it. And this will also help us to identify whether or not we're advancing the mission, if we're flying the mission. Quality, service, innovation, leadership, 3 core components of our mission. So how do we know whether or not we're advancing the mission? Well, we talked about having a common language. And that common language, those common definitions of quality, service, leadership, and innovation, which were spelled out during our session, are quality service is aiming to exceed customer expectations. Knowing the expectations of our customer aren't always jointly held by our expectations. So what do we need to do? We need to find out what our customers want. An example of that being the survey that went out last October. We asked for customer feedback. We're in the public service business, so we asked our customers, what do you think? They gave us feedback. This October we'll go out again. We'll find out whether or not we're exceeding their expectations. What are our benchmarks? What are our metrics that we can measure off of? We talked about leadership. And leadership in the definition of encouraging individual responsibility for action. The fact that anyone in this organization at any level, and every level, should understand that they have a responsibility to take action, and that they don't need someone to tell them to take action. They should feel that vested in themselves. And managers and supervisors should be vesting that in their people and letting them know, within these parameters, I want you to get things done, and helping them get there. But they shouldn't have to wait to be told what to do. If we're going to be an organization that excels with limited resources, which is what we are, and we have to be okay with that. I mean, you have a choice. Either you complain about the limited resources, or you do the best with what you have. And that's where I've been very proud to work for this organization. That's what we do. And everybody needs to be a leader. Innovation, creating environment to spark new ideas. So what are you doing as a manager or supervisor to create that environment? And that doesn't mean that you have to be the man or woman who's in that environment. You're creating it for others. And I'll give you an example. An employee who just became a first-level supervisor. And I ran into him in the hallway, and I could tell he had a little trepidation about going into the job. And frankly, I just told him, you know, you've got employees who I know have great ideas. The best thing you could do right now is just walk in and say, tell me what you think. What should we be doing differently right now? And these people are going to have an outpouring of ideas, and all you need to do is say, great ideas. What can I do to help you make them happen? And that's the little thing of creating that environment to spark new ideas. They're not necessarily your ideas. They're the ideas of the people who are working on a daily basis, making things happen out there on the streets, in the office. I've been disappointed, in my career to see people who, when the idea is not theirs, it's hey, we're too busy. We can't get to that. And they just push it aside. So we talked about these three components. We talked about performance plans, how every organization pretty much does the top, the evaluation. That's your average organization. I'm going to tell you how you did. Once a year, we're going to get together, and I'm going to do an evaluation, and I'm going to tell you how you did, and we'll see if you're surprised or not, right? The good organizations actually put a plan together on the front end, and they define the expectations of what you need to do. So those are the bookends. The truly efficient organizations who get a lot done with little resources have the meat in the middle. So not only am I going to tell you what my expectations are, but I'm going to talk to you about what support systems I'm going to provide you, the tools to get the job done. And then I'm not going to wait a year, but I'm going to give you periodic evaluation along the day. And it's defined up here, helpful observations. Now, if you really care about your employees, this comes really easily, because you want to see them succeed. And if you see them veering a little off course, you're the first person as a manager or supervisor who says, hey, I know your goals. We talked about them. I want to get you there. You're veering a little off course. Or you're giving them the positive feedback. Hey, you're doing really well. Keep it up. And then there's, of course, the periodic evaluation. Need not be annually, at least annually, but ideally even more so. On a daily basis, it could be the concept of the 1-minute manager. Hey, you're doing a good job. Keep it up. Hey, you're not doing a good job. I need you to do this differently. But it's got to go both ways. If you only choose to give the positive feedback and then wait for the negative feedback for a longer stint of time, you're going to get in trouble. All right? So that's the performance plan overview, that part of that infographic. The other thing we did is we talked about culture. And we talked about reverse engineering culture, because culture is this concept that's so abstract. And what is culture about? Well, culture is just the culmination of our habits, which derive in our daily actions. So if we can figure out and evaluate what our daily actions are that we want to change, and we practice them daily, they can become our habits, which will become our culture as an organization. And that's where, if we think that our culture in any facet of our organization is going awry and isn't what we want it to be, the easiest thing, in my opinion, is to go back to, well, what are we doing on a daily basis? What are our practices, our actions? And this frankly applies to our daily lives. And we talked about it. You want to be that marathon runner where, well, you better be jogging on a daily basis. And don't just talk about being a marathon runner. You better be developing habits of running. Otherwise, you start to lose credibility, right? We're a customer service organization. And then the person observes an altercation between the staff person and the public. And they're saying, well, you're saying you are, but you're not practicing it. You're not. And so you can lose credibility in that regard. So this is really important. And I actually compliments the person who put this infographic together. I thought she did remarkably well. We talked about the effective leader pyramid, that these are the values that we seek in the people we hire. That these are oftentimes innate. These are kindergarten values, some of them, right? I mean, we all remember the guy who was, and it had to be the boy. It wasn't the girl who was pulling hair. I don't know why, but in kindergarten, or knocking down the blocks. I remember him distinctly. And these, they're those qualities that are oftentimes innate. And so when we hire people, we need to look for people who have these values. Of course, we need to hire people with a good head on their shoulders. That's part of it as well. But these are important values of our organization. And finally, we talked about how we help each other to succeed. So you got the self, the team, the organization. It all rolls up, all right? We're the component parts of this larger organization called the city, the services that we provide. I will always suggest that the strongest level of accountability comes horizontally, and that's peer-to-peer. That's informal and formal. Your formal responsibility runs vertically, meaning I'm the city manager and there's an executive team, blah, 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 right? I place more importance on horizontal accountability so that when you're working as team members, you're talking to each other about behaviors that might be being exhibited. And you're saying, I've noticed in you that something must be wrong because I know that we share this common goal in mind, but the behaviors you're exhibiting aren't going to get you there. What's going on? And doing it in a caring way if we want to see each other succeed. And that's, it doesn't always come naturally, but it should. And there were 3 things that I asked you to do. And so now's your time not to confess, but to reflect on it and whether or not you put these 3 things into action or you still need to do it. My expectations, I said at the end, your task, your action plan, was number 1, reflect on your daily actions. It's pretty easy, right? 2, talk to your employees about their performance plans within the context of the infographic we looked at. And finally, provide environments to spark new ideas. Those are mine. I mean, my expectation is hopefully most of you left inspired on another level from the information shared. That isn't my information, frankly. It's just information that I've gathered over the years that's basic information on organizational development. And took other ideas forward. Those were just my 3 requests of you. And so if you've done it, my compliments to you. If you still have to put the action plan together to do it, no better time than the present. Start it up. Comments on this? None? Self-explanatory? Pretty easy? Anyone have a good critique? Something they'd like to see different on it? All right. Okay. So thank you to, where's Marie? Thank you for coordinating, putting together these nice card stocks so we can all have them in our drawer as a reference tool. So, being an effective manager. These are 6 effective manager. This is Steve Kroeger walking into his office on a 7 a.m. sometime in early June and having a moment where I did a write-up. And luckily I had someone convince me to present it to you today rather than just blasting it out, right? And I just was like, I got to get this information out. I got to push it out to everyone. It's brilliant. Whatever. So if you draw a line between 3 and 4, you've got the process of bringing people into the organization, and then you've got the process of developing them, okay? So just think about that as we talk about these 6 components of being an effective manager. I will say that there are average managers. Okay, you got your bell curve, average, average is 50%. I don't know if any of you listen to Garrison Keillor where he says where all the kids are, above average. It's impossible, right? Average is average. Half are going to be greater, half are going to be less. My goal will still be in this organization to hire people on the upper end of the bell curve, okay? Because I'm looking at managers on a broader scale. So there are things that average managers do, and then there are things that really effective managers do. Effective managers know results that they want to achieve, and they're moving toward that. So let's talk about these 6 components. Recruitment. Average managers wait for individuals to simply respond to job advertisements. That's not bad. That's average, right? How do you fill a position? I go over to Human Resources. I say, Natalie, I need to fill a position. Natalie says, don't worry. I'll get Sierra working on it. We'll get it together. A job advertisement comes out. A month later, I get a list of people. I go through the people, and I go take it from there. All right? That's average. That's okay. The effective manager recruits top quality people to come work for them. That's the effective manager. Has an understanding of the people out there in the industry who they want to come to work for them. And a person who's got certain qualities that we look for. And it's I'll go back to saying a person's got a good head on their shoulders, but it has to have certain qualities, those values that we talked about in the leadership pyramid. They don't wait for individuals to simply respond to the job advertisement. And I know an individual in our city who had a position open, who went, first time did this, okay? We all learn, right? Including me. I've done plenty of goofy stuff. Then did this, went and combed the Sacramento region, interviewed people, brought them to the community, toured them around the community. I mean, went above and beyond. When that individual came to me and said, hey, Steve, I can't fill this position. We talked, the definition of insanity is if we're going to do this over again and have the same result, let's not. So we took a step back and looked at how we're going to recraft the position and structure it differently. Because he did, in my opinion, this and did not have a fruitful outcome. It's the same analogy for me as fishing. When you go fishing, you don't just throw your pole into the water. You talk to other people about where the fish are biting. And you figure it out, and you figure out what time of day and where to go, and that's where you're throwing your pole, what kind of bait to use, whether it's a panther martin or you're using salmon eggs. And that's how you fish. And so we need to fish for the right people. So hiring. So we've moved beyond recruiting. Now we've gone out. We know where the fishing hole is, and we're going to get the right person in. The average manager hires new employees based on education or previous positions held. I found the right person. Look at them. They've done the job before, right? They've got the education. They meet the MQs. This is the person. That's average. That's okay. That may work. But your effective manager is going to hire the person who has the values that reflect the organization. You're going to get into a level deeper to find out whether or not this person has a positive attitude, they get along well with other people, they're adaptable to change, and they're always willing to learn. They're eager to learn. They've got an eagerness about them that they want to improve. Those are the people that you're going to want to hire. Not easy. It's more difficult to make sure that person's values match your organizations, your departments, your divisions, your teams. But it's worth the effort. So the initial evaluation. So we've got the person on board. We found the right person. They reflect our organization's values. So now we're going to the next level. The person's on board. Your average manager is going to evaluate this employee's performance before their probation ends to decide if they are the right person for the position. Said it before, I'll say it again. You've got a 1-year period for probation. You know within a very short order whether or not they're the person for the job. Effective managers know whether or not the person they hire is the right person for the job within 3 months. 3 months, they know they're the right person for the job. Okay? And you say, wow, how's that? How can you figure that out? You can. Just pay attention. Work with your employee. The worst thing you can do to an employee, in my opinion, to show you're really not caring, is to wait 9 months and all of a sudden get a reminder that their probation's ending. And you're like, oh, geez, man, I got to start. I got 3 months. Before I know it. And then they start getting the feedback of what they need to improve. It's doubly embarrassing to the person because they're thinking, I've been doing this for 9 months and you haven't told me? And now they have a shortened window to improve their actions, their practices, their behaviors. You need to know within 3 months whether or not that person's for the job. It takes active engagement with new employees, continuous feedback, and thoughtful evaluation. Thoughtful. That means you take the time. Effective managers know this and make the time commitment necessary throughout the year. Effective managers don't have the excuse that I was really busy. You don't understand. It was a really busy time of the year. I had a lot going on. Your employees are how you affect your job, meaning how you get service delivery to the public. So you better be providing the good care and feeding of them. I tell my department heads the most important job is hiring the right people. So we've got the person on board. Luckily, we did the proper evaluation. 3 months, they're the right person. Everything's been glorious. Now that we have them on board, the average manager meets with staff annually as required, keyword required, to give performance evaluations. Your effective manager develops the performance plan, the 4 steps that we talked about. Not the 1 step, not the 2 step, but all 4 steps. They define expectations, identify resources, ensure feedback mechanisms for continuous improvement, and training for ongoing employee development. Especially with the millennials, who are our future, this investment in training is important. And luckily for us, that is aligned with our organization, that we value training. I can't go back and reflect on the past. I've only got today on a go-forward basis. So you may have opinions on how things have been done in the past. I'm telling you, on a go-forward basis, training is essential for this organization. So we got a great performance plan in place. So what's the next step? Team development. So you got that relationship with your individual, and you have a relationship with the team too. Average managers do not find value in taking time to meet with staff to receive feedback and new ideas for improved service and performance. So this goes into the innovation component of sparking new ideas. Effective managers have weekly team meetings to encourage and facilitate open conversation. These aren't staff meetings. These are open conversation meetings with regard to how we do business and how we can improve our business processes. Okay? Best ideas are going to come from your troops. They really are. And this goes back into the vertical and horizontal accountability. That team layer in there is really important in terms of how we help to succeed. I think we talked about in our last meeting too, and about the aversion people have to contributing in a team environment. Does anyone remember that? We talked about that? Because I'm forgetting it right now. So this is being taped, so someone's got to help me out. It was, why do people not want to contribute? Google spent like a couple $1 million trying to figure out why teams don't work well. And I believe, if I'm recalling correctly, it was an aversion to being called out, say, for being wrong. So, thank you. God bless you, Lynn. we need to create psychologically safe environments. That's it. And so your job as a manager is not to be the person in there necessarily leading. It's to create an environment where people feel psychologically safe to contribute and aren't going to get hit back. Stupid idea. When was the last time you came up with a good idea? And letting people know that that's not acceptable. That's not what we want. That's one of the reasons I enjoy brainstorming. You go to the whiteboard, you start writing ideas down, and you get some goofy, stupid ideas. But the rules of brainstorming is there are no stupid ideas. And the beauty of it is as you're developing your evolution of ideas, you end up with a good idea that evolved from some silly ideas. And there's value in that. So you create that environment for that conversation to happen. So you've got the team, you got the person, he or she's doing great, they're doing well in their team, they're participating in these meetings. Organizational development. When people come and talk to me about how they're going to move up to a higher level in the organization, oftentimes it's a mid-manager, and their department head says, hey, you might want to go talk to the city manager. And they say, how am I going to succeed in this organization? How am I going to achieve that next level? Average managers do not pay attention to other operations or projects that are occurring within the city. Oftentimes, frankly, because under the auspices of being too busy. I'm just too busy doing what I'm doing. Effective managers see the big picture and encourage their employees to participate in organization-wide initiatives. They understand the value in creating connections among departments and how this contributes to better service delivery to the public. So any of you who have participated in the UC Davis training, who have participated in the Leadership Academy, who have done the 97% team, who are part of the digital front door, these are those pieces of that puzzle. And you realize the value in developing the interconnections so that you can comfortably pick up the phone and call someone from another department. Or when you see a problem, you know that's not my problem, that's the other department's problem. But you know, hey, I'll just pick up the phone and I'll call Matt, because I know Matt handles that stuff, because I remember we had a conversation one day as part of one of these trainings. And if you're an effective manager, you're not only accepting these desires of your staff, but you're encouraging them. And you're not saying, maybe next year, we're really busy right now. Well, I guess the point of this is we're always going to be busy. And it's the same concept when someone comes to me, or used to come to me, because they know better now, and say, I didn't have time to get it done. And I always tell them, we all have 24 hours in a day. You're just telling me it wasn't a priority for you. And the really good people own it and move on. They say, yeah, you're right. I didn't prioritize well. I'll get it done. The people who don't own it and say, no, but you don't understand, are the ones who may, stay in their position and not excel. That's not always bad. But, all these components, one of the things I asked you all to do from the last meeting is reflect and accept the feedback of other people. That's probably the most powerful thing you can do through all of this, is be introspective, but also develop some relationship with someone in this organization who can give you frank feedback and who you can take it from, okay? And just be willing to accept that feedback for face value, because we have a natural mechanism in each of our egos that we all have that's defensive, that wants to push back and tell the person why they're wrong and why what I'm doing is right. But the person who's going to grow is the person who's willing to take the feedback and consider it, at least give it 24 hours to ponder it, and then decide what they're going to do differently. Because whatever that person's perception of you is their reality, and if it's commonly shared by others, that's who you are. You may think you're someone different, but you're not. And you need to find out what other people think of you, all the way up to the city manager level. Because sometimes in this role, not me as a person, but just in this role, people are hesitant to give feedback. My most valuable people I can find are those who don't want to give me the feedback, but have the wherewithal to say, Steve, I want to give you this to consider. So that's the organizational development. That is the effective manager in a nutshell. I hope that many of you were thinking he missed something. Actually, that would be my most desirable outcome of this. If you guys said, he didn't talk about this. And it stimulates conversation among each of you to talk about what it means to be an effective manager in this organization beyond these components. But I want you to, and maybe we'll develop some infographic based on this as well. I want you to think very seriously about the process you individually use in bringing people into this organization.
What was that again?
Because, Arnaldo, I'll talk to you after class. So, stay. He's a good hire. Don't worry, he's a good hire. He did come to me, I'll tell you, he did come to me and announce that his probation was ending the next day. And he reminded me that I had 24 hours within which to get rid of him in order to avoid paying the consultant another fee to go out again. And then Arnaldo left my office and I couldn't find him for 24 hours. So strongly not consider, but adopt these ideas. They're not my ideas. They're just ideas that are good in order to be effective managers. Because think a lot about your legacy that you leave behind. Your legacy is not you. Your legacy are the people who are making it happen for this community into the future. So when we go out and we hire a young person, or a person, whatever, and the reason I say that is people will have hopefully a 20 or 30 year career here. That's our business model. That's how we do business so well here in this organization. We hire people, we treat them well, we want to keep them here. We do. And if they're going to be a 30-year employee, we want to get the best darn person on the front end. And that's the process to go through, to find the right person, train them well, give them that feedback, grow them in this organization. And I think it'll be a positive outcome at the end. It's all about service delivery. That's what we do. It's our customers. And this is just a system to put in place to ensure that the end result to our customers is top-notch service and that we advance the mission, right? Quality, service, innovation, leadership, keep it moving forward. What do we have? Questions, comments, zingers? There are no plants in the audience. Someone said, hey, you got to ask a question of Steve. Nothing, Diana? No?
What do you think this organization does well in terms of effective managers?
What do we do well? Well, let me ask you guys. And I'll agree or disagree with you. What do you guys do well as effective managers? Which one of these pieces? Someone's got to be proud. Someone's got to say, hey. Diana.
I'm sorry, sir, my arm.
To Diana. Go.
Stay connected to the business that you're in.
Okay.
It's very easy to stay in your office, and we have a lot of paper. We have meetings. We have things. And yesterday we had case in point, we had some staffing challenges at the shelter. And I was noticing the two faces of the two people that were trying to handle all these animals coming in. We just had an influx of animals all of a sudden. And I said, hey, can I help you do the intake? And they both looked at me, and I said, I used to be a pretty good animal handler. And they went, okay. And I came in, and we took care of business. And they got to leave on time, and they really appreciated that.
Okay.
And I realized that I was a pretty good animal handler, and still can.
So that's a good observation. I tend to agree with you. I think across the board, in terms of effective managers, we have people here who, I call them working managers. They're not afraid to get dirty. They don't say, hey, I'm in a new position now. That's not my job. All right? They're the ones who are willing to say, hey, are you busy? Let me help you out. And I think that's a good observation. And maybe that goes back to some part of our business model that many have grown within so they can relate. It's like, no, I just didn't come here at some high level. It's like I came from within this organization, say, and they can understand at all. Gary Marler, who recently retired, great example. Started as a maintenance worker, park maintenance worker, and over time. And he said, he said to me, I didn't think I was going to get the job. I mean, this is the park maintenance worker position from 30 years ago. He said, I just applied and I thought there are so many good people out there, I'm not going to get the job. And 30 years later, he retires as the overseeing a large operation of the city. Good hire, whoever did that. Whether that was luck, right? Whether or not that there was really a system behind that, or luck happens. For me too, frankly, But when luck happens, just take credit for it too. It's okay too. So that's good. What else as effective managers do you think you do?
You got to be a good listener.
Good listener.
Because you can do all this stuff, but if you're not listening to the employee, it's not going to work.
So do you think that we as an organization do a good job of listening?
I think we could do better.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Matt. I do. I really agree with that. And sometimes listening entails awkward silences in meetings. Okay?
Like now.
Okay? The effective manager isn't the same as the efficient manager, right? The efficient manager is going, okay, we got to get going, let's go. Everyone's just rushing through the meeting because they know they're busy, they got to get back. The effective manager is willing to have an awkward silence, willing to acknowledge things we're not doing well, never in a hurtful way. If it's going to be a hurtful way, then you need to have a one-on-one conversation with someone, not in a crowd. JP.
Just to piggyback off of that, I think we always hear, we don't always listen. So I think our presence might be there a lot of the time, but we're not taking in and reflecting on the things that are being said to us.
Yeah. So probably one of the best ways to do that, the Socratic method, which is just asking questions. So the person says something to us, and I know they always say you should reiterate what they said, right? It gets kind of corny after a while. So what I hear you saying is, I was like, stop that. But just to be able to engage in the conversation and say, so what do you think about that? You brought up this point, what could we do differently to, as a discipline to ourselves, to cause ourselves to be more effective listeners? You guys might have tools that you use, but that's a good point. It's not just what's said, it's what we do with what's said.
A lot of it's humility too. A lot of times you take what they're saying and don't process it because you're already doing things a certain way and you think you're doing it the right way, and you don't necessarily open your mind up to the ideas that your employees or co-employees might be bringing on.
Yeah. Megan.
I think a part of being receptive to what your manager has to say to you, I think at our facility, I feel like we're less managed, but that we're being grown. We're kind of being instilled certain aspects of our environment, and it doesn't feel like any mistake we're about to make is, we can make mistakes, but we're going to learn from them, but we're being grown rather than just being told what to do all the time. We're being shared with constantly by past experiences so that we can learn from them ourselves, where we're being shared information that makes you feel like, I don't know, lucky to, I don't know, the feeling for me is just that we're being grown rather than managed. It's just, it's very organic, and I think it's an easier way to be receptive when, if you want to listen and be heard, some of that just has to be natural and grow your people around.
And so something we can do as this organization is figure out who's doing stuff exceptionally well. Because we're all doing things exceptionally well. But what is our niche that we're doing exceptionally well that other people can learn from? So to have maybe certain environments where they're creating that environment that you described, and others say, hey, we don't have that. And to be able to tap into Megan tap into Diana and say, what are you guys doing? Just give us some of your practices. It goes back to culture. What are some of the things you're doing on a daily basis? And what are your habits? And figure out how you build it based upon your examples of what's going on. It's good. It's good. Those of you who have worked around me, I have a term, I call it good clay. Okay? If someone's good clay, we can mold them into something. I guess back to Diana's original question of what do we do as effective managers, what are we already doing? I am very proud and optimistic into the future that we have the right clay in this organization, that we can become what we want to become, that we're not hardened. Okay? Clay that's been hardened breaks. It's brittle. You know, or hasn't been hardened well, just cracks when you're trying to work with it. Good clay you can mold into things and shape it and continue to shape it over time. And that's what I value in this organization, is people who are the good clay to mold, who aren't hardened in their ways. Hey, we've always done it that way, don't mess with me. It's good, you know. So that's the optimist in me, which is rightfully optimistic. Just for chuckles, what do we need to work the most on? Offerings. I've got my ideas, but they don't count as much as yours. Team development?
That's what I was going to say.
Okay. Anyone else? Team development? We got votes for team? No one else? Come on, Eddie. What do you want?
The team development is really about creating a culture of healthy competitiveness. Not to put anyone down, not to do better for the sake of being better than, so that if you come up, then you bring them up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun and it's engaging. That's what's really important about the team development.
Okay.
The component, I think, that makes it successful.
And if you create that environment to spark new ideas, hopefully that creates that healthy environment. Okay.
You know, Steve, I would add, we all have our own little individual, we're all different but the same. But our new hires are pretty much, for the most part, evaluated daily for about 4 months. I think sometimes I kind of struggle with, I ask myself, do we focus too much on the minutia or the big picture? And so it's a struggle of trying to train. There are a lot of little things that we have to know how to do, but sometimes it's easy to get lost in them. And focusing more on developing the individual, knowing that, making sure that you're comfortable that those little details are going to come with some additional time and movement. I personally think that's a struggle for us.
So the focus more on the technical skills than the broader.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a laborious process. Every day, the training officers are putting huge amounts of time into it, and it's a necessary part of the
Yeah.
process. But I worry sometimes that it bogs us down.
Right. That's a good observation. There's a balance there. Or will always be a hard balance, I'm sure, to achieve. Which one do you think we're doing really well, though, Bubba? Which one we're doing exceptionally well, and which one we would need to focus on? I'm not going to disagree with you in terms of being equal. I follow you.
Reading through this,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm trying to map myself through this, I'm
I absolutely. You're right. This conversation is a subset of that.
Right. But I mean, to me, they're all equally valued. Everybody's going to have a little bit different. I might need to work a little more on organizational development.
Okay.
Others might need to work, more on the team development and stuff. But if I'm working hard at going this direction as you presented, I'm gonna
Yes.
So where does that fit into those 6 items?
Well, I guess if you have someone who's managing you, it would come in the staff development phase, right? Because if although you're at a different, your relationships with your employees should be one that, and maybe I'm not answering your question, so ask it again if I didn't, that I'm working with you to make sure that you're getting the training you need, be that technical training or be that more qualitative growth training.
I'm talking about the manager themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
should be getting from their manager.
Or possibly, the way I look at it, the manager is part of the team, the staff. And so that's, when you're looking at developing the staff under you, you should also be looking at that, what can you do to develop yourself at that same time?
I think John hit it spot on. You're right, John. And I think there are different levels in our organization, and that's not ever one's not better than the other. We just all have different roles. If I'm a line staff person who just started my job, I'm going to expect my manager to tell me what training I need to get the job done. I mean, that's going to be that, give me the tools Steve, you need to take these trainings over the course of the next year. It's, for example, it's in my office, it's Terrell working with Marie. Marie's been here over a year now, but Terrell told Marie, these are the trainings you need. As you grow into a supervisor position, you should be taking that initiative to, great for the person who's taking the initiative at any level, but you're in charge of yourself as you grow in this organization. As much as I was answering your question in that general sense, as you grow, it's like, whose responsibility is it to keep you informed? It's my loaded question. Yours, right? That's your responsibility to keep you informed. No one's to blame. I didn't know about that. No one told me. Great. Okay. Figure it out. There's plenty of information flowing around there. Stay informed. It's at whose responsibility is it to make sure that you've got a growth path and that you're managing it. As you move up in this organization, you need to take more individual responsibility. Is that? Yeah, that's.
I'm just want to piggyback on Diana because I
All right.
agree. I feel I'm with you on needing a space for that acknowledgement of developing your own agency. Because you want help. Like I said, you do want to rely on in some ways rely on those systems of at the staff development level where you're the staff and not the manager. But also I do feel like there's a space for individual development, self-development, learning the
Yeah.
developing, because that is an essential part, is you have to be, like I said, develop agency, develop ability, so that you're capable of doing all of the other things.
Separate the message from the messenger.
Separate the message from the messenger. Critical. It's the difference between personal and professional to me. And I don't mean that. I just mean that the fact that someone came and shared a message with you that you didn't want to hear, you need to separate the message from the messenger. And if you don't, then you're going to kick back at the person because you just heard something you didn't want to hear, and that person's never going to come back and share more information with you because it was an unpleasant experience for them. And you just cut off a resource of someone who actually cared enough about you to come to you and share with you an observation that they had. I will always put responsibility on managers, okay? Meaning the worst thing that a department head could ever do is come to me and talk to me about how the morale in their department is bad, okay? Because if it is, then you better look in the mirror because you're the morale guy or you're the morale girl. You're the person who's in charge of making sure you're creating an environment. If you can't figure it out, then let's talk about it, how you get there. That said, for me, in my however many years of my career, I've had 2 performance evaluations. Okay. one when I was about 22, and one when I was about 47. And I seem to have done okay, for me. It's like, but then again, I've always been figuring out on my own what I need to do. So it's kind of it's a bit ironic, I guess, that I tell you that it's the manager's responsibility. If anything, it's the manager's responsibility to ask the right questions of their staff. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? How can I help you get there? What's the training path? If you hired the right person, you're going to have an engaged conversation. If you hired the wrong person, they're going to go, And I'm not telling you that everyone needs to have the growth path to become a director. But they should at least have an aspiration to become the best in what they do. I know employees that have been in the same position since I've started years ago who I would put up against any other employee in any other city. They are top-notch. They do the job in exemplary fashion. They're always trying to figure out a better way to do their job. And I can walk around and see the fruits of their labor. It's just, that person nailed it. So, and maybe that came from within the person, or maybe it came from a manager. That person probably came from within, but they've been very satisfied in their role that they play in this organization, that static role, and that's fine. And you know what? The other thing, if you remember from the other presentation, that leadership is not tidy. If you're looking for the answer, this is the wrong place. Okay? Stay flexible in your thinking. These provide models for you to work around, but to the observations of Scarlett, right? This is missing something. Take this and adapt it to your needs. If you find yourself totally adulterating it, then maybe something's wrong. But just take the concepts here and use them as best you see fit. Better be important, Jesse. Better be important. Yeah. Good one. May I get those for you? So yeah, take your personal development seriously along the way. It'll pay off. So I'll just give you my thoughts that I think that the most important piece of it is the staff development. That's just me. That if we're doing this right, we got that's great. And I think it's actually, quite frankly, the easiest. And I'm not talking about the annual performance evaluation. I'm talking about having a relationship with your employees where you can have constant conversation about how they're doing, good, bad, and have that moving along. In terms of where we need to focus on, I would agree on the team development. And I'm not talking about just getting along well with your teammates. I'm talking about having the open conversations with regard to how we do business and how we can improve our operations. I think leagues have been made in the organizational development side of it because there's been a lot of participation in our cross-departmental groups, Leadership Academy, UC Davis, 97% committee. And I don't know whether or not that's being, how much that's being encouraged or people are just taking it on their own volition to participate. So, that's the nutshell. Any other thoughts, observations, comments? There are no stupid questions. Only stupid people. Sorry, I had to say the rest of it. Which we don't have here, so don't worry about that one.
Steve, when's the survey go out? January?
Mr. Gale, when does the survey go out? October, and we usually get the results probably around by January, yes? Okay. So if you're going to sharpen your pencil in terms of customer service, this is the next 2 months before the survey goes out. We got a remarkable response. What was our survey return rate?
Close to 1,000 people.
1,000 people in this community responded, which is really good. So we're hoping to shoot for 1,000 again. And this goes back to separate the message from the messenger. Our job is to get the survey results and not figure out why these customers are wrong and what they're thinking and telling us, but just to take the message and try and figure out what we can be doing differently as an organization. Sometimes and also reflect on whether or not we lost ground in certain areas. For example, maybe in Arnaldo's shop, I know for the code enforcement side, and I know in cooperation with police, they've been actively going after a lot of code enforcement issues in this city. So maybe our code enforcement actually gets dinged, right? Because you're going to have some people who say, I've been unhappy, and they list it out. So we have to put things in context as well when we get the results back. There's not necessarily the winning marks and the losing marks. That's just information. And we have to look at that information and how we use it to improve our operations and advance our mission. Because for the person complaining about having to clean up their house, you probably have 5 people in the neighborhood who are just saying, right on. Good work. So, so we'll take that in balance as well. All right. Thank you for your time this morning. Much appreciated.